Hello and welcome to today's fourth and final session of the Macmillan Education Asia Autumn Webinar Series. The last week has been great. We've done three webinars so far with teachers attending not just only in Asia, but from all over the world. So with that in mind, if you can hear me and if you can see me, can you type in the chat box? Can you just say hello and where you are watching from, please? Good morning, Kunthea. Nice to see you again. Okay, Myanmar, Jakarta. Lovely. Oh, someone from Bangkok just down the road. Lebanon and Mexico. Wow. So again, India, lovely to see you. Hello, Vietnam. Hello, Iran. And Ecuador as well, 10 o'clock at night. So thank you for getting up early or for staying up, depending on where you are. So my name is Del, and I'm the Regional Teacher Trainer and Academic Consultant for Macmillan Education. And I'll be taking you through today's session on the topic of personalisation. So personalise to maximise engagement. So before we begin, I'd like to give you a little bit more information about who we are at Macmillan Education. So we're a well-established publisher, been publishing for over 175 years now. And our most famous publication from back in the day would have been Alice in Wonderland. And from those early days, we've then become a world-leading publisher, and we work in three main areas. Those areas being language learning, which I imagine is the area that you are working in at the moment, so English language teaching. We also work in curriculum, which is working in bringing expertise and resources to schools in the form of materials for science, maths, and literacy, so getting our children to read and speak. And finally, we work in higher education, partnering with researchers and educators. I think I need another glass of water. So those are the three key areas that we work in. And as I said, I imagine most of us today are working in ELT and language learning. Let's have a look now at what we're going to cover today. So here's our menu for today's session. Personalise to maximise engagement. So we're going to look at these areas. So we're going to look at some definitions of personalisation and then look at why we should personalise, why it's important. We're going to look at two different kinds of personalisation. So here you can see we're going to look at the deep personalisation and shallow personalisation. And then we're going to have a look at a course book, Speak Your Mind, and we're going to see how this course book gives us teachers opportunities to personalize throughout the material in the unit. And then what I'm going to do is really focus in. I'm going to have a look in detail at a unit and show you some ideas and some techniques that you can use to personalize the materials that you're using as well. And then we'll finish with some looking at a recap of the benefits of personalization. And I'll show you some additional resources that are available to you. Then we'll have some reflection and a Q&A at the end. However, if you have got any questions as we go through, then please just pop them in the chat box and I'll try and keep up with the questions as we go on. If I miss, then just pop it in at the end of the session. And I will ask you at time to contribute by using the chat box. So please familiarize yourself with the chat box, which some of you have already done by typing in your names and saying hello. So the first task for you today is to look at two tasks from a course book. So I'm going to tell you, you are a student who is studying English. And your teacher has given you a choice of tasks to do. Which one would you prefer to complete? Would you prefer to complete A or B? And let me know why you would prefer to complete A or B. I'll give you a moment to think about that. So a lot of A's coming in. Why do you prefer A and not B? Or why do you prefer B and not A? Okay, more freedom, a familiar topic. More freedom to choose. That's an interesting word, choose. I like imagination. It's more enjoyable, more interesting to write about. And there's that word choice again. And personalized. More luxurious, exclusive, and unique. Now, with B, the queen isn't really going to come to your house, okay? It's an imagination. A, because the scenario is more possible. Okay, I like it. Yeah, so I think I would choose A as well. A is what we might say highly personalized. And what makes it highly personalized is there is a real audience and potentially a real outcome. So with a real audience and a real outcome, students will be more motivated to complete the task. B is personalized to an extent that it is your house. It has the word your in it. But realistically, it's hypothetical to the extreme and therefore not motivating, in my opinion. So any activity that is personalized, relevant to the learner's own experience, will be more motivating. So let's have a look now at two definitions of what I mean by personalization. So I'll let you take a moment to read that. So the first definition is from the Teaching English website, and it discusses the idea that because students are using real language, it forms part of the communicative approach, which is, I believe, is true. And then the second one is from Scott Thornberry's A to Z of ELT, and it sums up the idea of personalization very nicely. So we've looked at what it is. So now let's look at why. Why should we do it? Why should we personalize? And I've got some more evidence to show you from three really excellent sources. And I'll let you have a quick read of that, and then I'll discuss them. So here we have three ideas that say the same kind of thing. So the first one is from Gertrude Moskowitz, who wrote a book called Caring and Sharing in the Foreign Language Class. And she wrote this book in 1978. But the ideas are still relevant and they still hold water. And here she talks about how personalization can help make course books more relevant, which is a little bit of the focus of what we're going to look at later in the presentation. The second quote is from Rod Ellis, and Rod Ellis is a well-renowned linguist and most famous for his work in second language acquisition. And this was something he said at a conference in Japan. He talks here about personalization and the beneficial effects on motivation. And the final one is from One Stop English. So the website with tons of resources for teachers. And this discusses how personalization makes activities meaningful. And I'll actually share the link for this article later on at the end of the session. So if you look at the literature on personalization, if you Google personalization in EFL or in teaching, you'll find lots of people who believe the same as these three quotes here. And it's clear that personalization is beneficial and that we should be doing it whenever practical. So let's now discuss two different types of personalization. So here we have deep and shallow. So two kinds of personalization, one deep, one shallow. So if you look at those two examples again from the slide previously, what would you say, well, which one would you say is deep and which one is shallow? Let me know in the chat box. Which one is deep and which one is shallow? Okay, so we're getting lots of A equals deep and B equals shallow. Yeah. So if we think about this analogy of deep and shallow, shallow is kind of touching the surface, and deep is going underneath the surface to find out more and more information. And this is what we should be trying to do as teachers, is to try to make our language teaching and our activities that we do in the class as deep as possible. Let's have another look at an example of some deep and shallow personalization. So here we have an example of an activity that I am sure that you've used before, and I hope you've used it before, and I hope you continue to use them. It's a find someone who activity. They're very communicative, and they can be used to practice a variety of grammar points and different vocabulary topics. So here the students have to walk around the classroom, and they have a piece of paper that looks just like this. And they walk around and they ask each other questions, and they write the person's name if they have done this activity. So you would be using, in this example, present perfect questions for experience. So have you ever met someone famous? And I would ask you, and you go, yes, and I would write your name down. We also have can as well here. So find someone who can cook well. Some simple questions. Can you cook well? And then we move further down into present perfect again. So students, all they have to do is walk around the classroom and find someone who can do this or who has done this. So looking at this activity, would you say this activity was deep or would you say it was shallow? Okay, lots of shallows coming in. Yeah, of course. It's shallow because all we need to do to answer the question or to find the information is to write down someone's name. All they have to do, have you met someone famous? Yes, I have. Write the name down and move along. There's no opportunity to go deeper. So I will ask yourself, or I would ask you, how could we make this activity deeper? What could we do to make this a deeper personalization activity? How could we turn this find someone who into a deep down activity? Okay, lovely. Follow-up questions, WH questions, okay. More details. Yes, yes, of course. And I think this question, how can we turn activities into deep down activities, is something that you want to have in the back of your mind when you're preparing your lessons. So you look at an activity and then look at it again and say to yourself, how can I turn this into a deep down activity? So with this activity, as you mentioned, you might want to add the WH questions. Cynthia and Prove have mentioned that, and I think someone else has mentioned it previously. Saw Simon ask when, why, who, whom, and how. Yeah. So here we have the column to ask more questions, to go deeper. So with an activity like this, it's very simple to make it deeper. We add another column and ask students to find out more. And then with some simple scaffolding at the top, by adding question words, we can encourage students to take the conversation further and deeper. Now, you might also notice that I have left some rows blank. So we can add rows and we can encourage students to come up with their own ideas. This also provides for differentiation, which is something that John mentioned in his session last week. So we're differentiating by giving them a choice to add more depending on their level. If they are strong students, they can add lots of different ideas, and if weaker ones can add one or two that they may find interesting. But all the time, it's personalized because the content is coming from the students themselves. When we make our own materials, like the example here, it's easy to increase the depth of the personalization. However, often when we have a course book, we will be looking at shallow forms of personalization. And this is normal and obvious. Course books are in nature designed to be useful for a large number of students. And they will what we need to then do as teachers is exploit these shallow areas of personalization and make them deeper. And later in the presentation, I'm going to show you how we can do that. But first, let me get an idea of what kind of teacher you are. Do you personalize in your classes? So I'm going to show you now some quotes, and I'd like you to tell me, are you A, B, or C? Or maybe you're a mixture of A, B, and C. So in the chat box, let me know, are you A, B, or C? B, we've got an A, B, and C. That's very honest. Lots of A's, B's, and C's. Okay. A, B's, and C's. A, but I want to be B. Good. And okay, so you've told me who you are. So yeah, let's now answer the next question. Which teacher would you like to be? So which would you like to be? Okay, good, good. And most people are looking at C. That's nice, good. So if you are teacher A at the moment, I'm going to show you how the syllabus of Speak Your Mind can support you with this. All right. So I'm going to show you how this material does help you personalize your classes anyway. If you are B, I hope that by listening to the presentation, I can change your mind. Now, I will put a caveat here and say that sometimes you might think that personalization is a waste of time. And this is part of your job as a teacher, to find the areas that are going to be beneficial and easy to personalize, and some areas that you don't need to personalize. And I'll touch on that as well later on in the session. And if you are C, I hope you'll get lots of useful ideas about how you can personalize even more. So I'm going to address the first teacher, so teacher A. Let's have a look. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a course book called Speak Your Mind. So Speak Your Mind is a 6th level general English course that's designed to help young adults develop their communication skills. As you can see, it's got speak in the title, so communication is very important. And it's also part of our fully flexible range. So if you were here on the session on Wednesday, I talked to you about the resources that are available for teachers who are teaching either at home, in class, or teaching a mixed modality. And you can find lots of resources for Speak Your Mind in any modality on the website on macmillanenglish.com. What I really like about this book is that it understands the importance of personalization. And I'd like to show you a little overview of a unit and some examples before we go even deeper with these examples. So the first page of the unit is a unit opener. Now, the unit opener is designed to find out what students already know and to stimulate their interest in the topic. So this is called activating schemata, finding out what they already know. And it's very highly personalized. The question actually asks, what do you already know? So the question is directly at the student. There's no hypothetical here. Students then will record their vocabulary, and then they're asked to refer back to this as they work through the unit. And this helps personalize that initial list of vocabulary. Students then share their lists of vocabulary, and they will then watch a video that provides them with a model for a personalized speaking activity. And then at the bottom, we have the learning objectives of the unit. So this provides guidance for students on what they're going to study. And it also provides them with a sense of progress. Students can see what they expected to achieve and then measure themselves against this during the period of study. And we'll look in more detail at this unit opener and how it can be exploited even deeper in a moment. We then look at lesson 1, sorry. So lesson 1, 2, and 3 are skills-based lessons, and they also include all the grammar, the vocabulary, pronunciation throughout. Now, one way to help with personalization, we talked earlier about choice. So all the tape scripts can be found in the Student Resource Center. So if students are doing a listening activity, for example, they can choose whether they want to listen to it or read it by accessing the tape script. So they have a choice of their input of how they want to receive the information. Giving them this personal choice of skill to develop is important, particularly as adults, because they're going to want to know, they're going to be able to know what skills they need to develop. And you as a teacher can give them that choice by pointing out where the resources are. And as the focus of Speak Your Mind is communication, every lesson ends in a personalized, confident communicator speaking activity. Here you can see a writing activity, and a choice is given on what to write. But here it becomes important where you as a teacher can allow students and let them choose how they write and how to submit. So for example, traditionally, we would see students submit their work or their writing, their essays, in a notebook or on a piece of paper, ready to be graded or marked by the teacher. But look around you as you go through your day to day, or if you're in South America and you're going to bed soon, as you go through your day tomorrow, notice how many people you can see using a pen and paper. I think you'll find it quite rare. Now, even though we as teachers tend to use, I think teachers probably use pen and paper much more than say any other members of the community. When we look around and see other people using a pen and paper, it is quite rare. So give the students a choice of how they submit their work to you. Maybe they want to use their tablets, maybe they want to use their computers, maybe they want to email it to you, maybe they want to print it out. It depends on how you're teaching as well. Obviously, if you're working online, they'll probably be emailing it to you or posting it to a site where everyone can access that material. So give students a choice is also a part of personalization. Pronunciation here is dealt with very well in Speak Your Mind, but again, think about how you can personalize pronunciation. You might want to use your own expertise now of learning the language. So if you're teaching students that have the same first language as you, then this becomes a little bit easier for you because you will know what those areas of pronunciation are challenging, or which areas are challenging for your students, and you can focus on those challenges. This activity is a minimal pair activity. So that means they're using two words that have the same sound except for the consonant sound, t and ch. So in Thailand, we have a minimal pair that is challenging for students, which is L and R. So what we might do with this activity is get students to come up with their own words that have this minimal pair of L and R. So they will come up with words such as light and right and long and wrong. And we would brainstorm these words and put them on the board. Because the words have come from the students themselves, it's personal to them that they've chosen these words, then they're more likely to engage and want to practice with these words. They can then form sentences. They can practice these sentences with their friends, and you can use these examples further down the line. So make sure you get students to give you a choice, or you give them a choice to give you some of the language, particularly when you're eliciting ideas for pronunciation activities. When you're doing writing, give them a choice of what to write and how to write and how to submit. The next unit is called Language and Life. And Language and Life is an important part of any course, particularly in today's day and age. And this is part of the readiness for work element of the course. And it's followed up with a follow a pro section or a study skills section. I just touch on readiness for work because it's something that I've read recently that it's a real key issue at the moment. A new study has just been published which highlights the increasing number of firms that are seeing the purpose of university to be that of a place which ensures that students are job ready. So it's very important that students are coming out from university not only with a degree and with a knowledge of a field of study, but they're actually ready for the workplace. This is a key element of the course, is making students ready for the workplace. We can also see personalization happen here. Now, it might be a bit small. I'm going to make this bigger for you in a moment. But we have these make it boxes. And here we look at a make it digital box. And like I said, we're going to look at this in a bit more detail in a moment. We then move on to our review, which kind of finishes the unit, and a follow a pro activity or a study skills activity, depending on whether it is an odd or an even unit. In the review, students are encouraged here to look at the what do you now know activity. So the unit comes full circle. They then go back to the unit opener and they can add more language and more words to the lists that they've created. They can reflect here on the unit objectives and whether they feel they have been achieved effectively. The Follower Pro is an opportunity for students to find out in the form of a documentary video about a different occupation. Obviously, if this is an area that they are interested in working in, so here we have hospitality, it's going to be highly personalized. But if not, then students are encouraged to reflect on aspects of the job and give opinions and ideas. So it's personalized as much as possible. And here's an example of the study skills. So whether students are studying at university or working, this book covers that area quite nicely. The study skills is obviously going to be highly relevant to university students, but it's also very useful for those who may be working already. So designing a questionnaire in this case finishes with a make it happen box that brings personalization to the lesson. All right, so that kind of covers a unit of Speak Your Mind and highlights some of the ways that personalization is covered. But let's now go deeper. Let's look in a bit more detail at the make it boxes and take a much deeper dive into personalization and the first two lessons of Speak Your Mind. So throughout the book, students are prompted to these make it boxes. These are designed to personalize and make language learning real. And there are 4 kinds of make it boxes. So we have make it yours. And in this one, we have a really cool activity which says, which emojis do you use most often? Send an emoji to a classmate to say how you are feeling. Ask that person to say in English how you're feeling. So this is a real life task. Students are using their technology, using their phones, their smartphones to paste something, to send something to a student who will then have a reason to respond to that. So these make it yours boxes, they're designed to help students expand their vocabulary. And this activity, as I said, is highly personalized and uses technology to practice the language. I think this would be quite a memorable, quite a fun and a relevant activity that might also spark more conversation moving further as well. So not only just finishing the task, but then continuing further. And you as a teacher could look at ideas about how you can encourage that. We have make it happen boxes. So these feature after every skills lesson, study skills lesson, I should say, every study skills lesson. And the idea for this is to put into practice the skill that the students have already studied during that lesson. So here we have make a schedule for the next week, talk with a partner about the ways you can manage your time. So we're looking at a study skill, we're putting that skill into practice, and to create an audience, we're talking with a partner. Now, creating an audience is a key element of doing any task. It puts a reason, gives the students a reason to do the task. And here we can see that addressed really nicely. Make it real. Make it real boxes give learners examples of language they may not have been formally taught, but is commonly used by native speakers. So this provides learners with a chance to sound authentic when they're communicating. And what we want to kind of achieve here as well is creating a bank of personalized language items. And from this, they might see common errors that students would make, and they can make a record of these common errors and have a real nice personalized bank of language items that they can use themselves. And then we have Make It Digital. Every unit in Speak Your Mind has a suggestion for online work. So this one says, record a video on your smartphone about how you feel after a digital detox. Share your videos as a class. What did your classmates think? Students are encouraged to research at home, to study outside of the classroom. And we all know how important it is for students to study outside of the classroom, and not just if they're studying face-to-face, not just to close their books and then come back to them in the next language class. And the same with online. As soon as the Zoom chat or the platform that you're using closes, students can switch off. We want to give them opportunities to do personalized, important activities outside of the classroom. They then can come back to the class, whether it be face-to-face or online, and present their ideas as to the rest of the class and share. So these Make It boxes are really cool. They allow you as a teacher to take the strain off you a little bit as a teacher in terms of the amount of personalization that you're doing. So if we go back to teacher A, who wants to personalize but has to get through the syllabus, as this is part of the syllabus, it's already taken care of for you, so you don't need to worry too much about that. But as always, we do need to go deeper. We do need to look at activities and see how we can make them even more personalized as we work through the unit. So let's go deeper. Let's have a deeper look right now. So I'm going to go back to our initial unit opener. And it says, what do you already know? Okay, so I'm going to refer back to Gertrude for our deeper look as well. I really liked her quote. And as we're looking at a course book, it's super relevant. So let the students first discover what they can generate on the subject from their own personal thoughts and feelings. So this is the what do you already know part. And by drawing on their own experiences and reactions, the transfer to the textbook will be more relevant and more apparent. So here we have the question, what do you already know? Think about occasions you celebrate and write the words. So I'm just interested now to go back to you, because we have a wide variety of people from different countries in the chat box. Can you let me know in the chat box the celebrations that you only have in your country? So I will start with Thailand. No, actually, I'll leave it because we have people from Thailand. I don't want to steal their thunder. So what are the celebrations in your country that are only celebrated in your country and nowhere else? Give me some ideas in the chat box. Right, so my pronunciation is going to be terrible here, but Bai Douche, can you just put in a little bit more detail about what that is? A robe offering ceremony, nice Farmer's Day, water festivals, dragon boat festivals, revolution days. Yeah, that's going to be different across different countries, isn't it? Loy Krathong, yep. Christmas. Now, Christmas would be probably an international one, right? Because we celebrate that in many different countries. Songkran, yeah, for Thailand. I think there are other Songkrans, but they're not called Songkrans. Lots of water festivals, which is similar to Songkran and Loy Krathong in Thailand. Durbar celebration. I'm going to have to look back and do some research. The death anniversary. Okay. Carpet festival. Wow, I like that. Banyan trees. Yeah, that's Myanmar, I believe. Yeah, and we have banyan trees here. Excuse me, in Thailand as well. All right. So lots and lots of different festivals that we would celebrations that we would celebrate. So students come up with their own. Now, in a monolingual class, so if you're teaching students of the same nationality, they're probably going to come up with the same kind of lists. So there's the reason why we also have international celebrations. So let's think about international celebrations. What do people from different nationalities across the world, what do they celebrate? So we already had one before, Christmas. Christmas is celebrated, yeah. New Year, of course, yeah. I think New Year is universal. Valentine's Day, yeah. Thanksgiving, right? Yeah, we just had that, and we've had some celebrations in Thailand for Thanksgiving. Teachers' Day, Martyr Day. Yeah, Buddhist Lent. Yeah, that's shared, isn't it, across different countries, particularly in Southeast Asia. So students would come up with their own lists. All right, so they've come up with their own lists of words, and then you, as a teacher, might spark some other further discussion, and add your own questions to this. But to make this even more personal, when we create lists of vocabulary, particularly around a lexical set, it's very good to be able to personalize the lists. All right. So if you had a list of celebrations, for example, how could you personalize a list of celebrations? How could you make this a bit more personal for students? What tasks could they do to make the language more memorable to them? That might be different from another student in that class. So the list will be the same, but the way that they order their lists might be different. So something that you can do is use ranking. All right. So you would rank the list. So with celebrations, for example, you have a list of celebrations in your country. You can rank these words chronologically. So you can put them in the time that they happen in the year. So they're not just a random list of words. Now they're a list of celebrations in order of when they happen in the year. I've already personalized that a little bit. You can then ask students to rank them from which celebrations they like the best. So number one is their favorite celebration. Number two, their second favorite, and they rank the celebrations as they go down. Again, highly personalized because it's their list. They can then compare their lists with each other. You could rank them from the biggest celebration to the smallest celebration. You could rank them for the longest celebration to the shortest. So for example, in Thailand, Songkran lasts usually around 3 days. The water festival in April lasts about 3 days, whereas Valentine's Day, for example, is 1 day. So you rank them from longest to shortest. And then you could also rank them from the most expensive to the least expensive. So there are ways of ranking these lists of words or vocabulary that you're teaching to make them more personal. And I suggest that you do that. It's a really neat way and a quick way and an easy way to personalize lists of words. So after we've built up our vocabulary about celebrations, yeah, that's a nice one. A celebration you participated in. I like that idea as well. And then you could have the, you could rank them from how much participation to a lot of participation to a little participation. Nice, I like that. So what we're going to look at now is I'm going to show you a video that students can access. Students can access this in their own time. They can watch it in their own time using the Students' Resource Center, or the teacher can play it to them in the class, or the teacher can play it to them online. I'm going to try now to play this online. Now, we'll see how things go. And while you watch the video, tell me how you think it's personalized. All right, I'm going to show you the video, and you tell me how you think the video is personalized. Now, I need to switch my mic off for the video, so I'm switching that off now.
I'm Ken.
And I'm Teresa.
Today, we're talking about giving gifts. Do you prefer to give a gift?
Or an experience.
I like giving gifts. It's fun to give friends something that they'll really love. Like, I bought my best friend a really nice camera, and he uses it all the time.
That's a great gift, but I like to take my friends somewhere special as a gift. Maybe to a concert or dinner at their favorite restaurant. I prefer to give experiences because they'll remember the fun time we had. For my brother's birthday, I took him to see his favorite band. It was a great experience. He talks about it all the time. Hey, Ken, remember when we went skydiving for your birthday?
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was awesome.
See, people remember experiences. I have my gift ready for the party.
And I have mine. What about you? Do you prefer to buy gifts or experiences for celebrations? It's your turn to speak your mind.
Oh, okay. I hope that you all got to see the video. So my question was, how was the content of the video personalized? How would it be personalized, or how did they personalize the video? How did they make it engaging for students? Good, yeah. So the topic, friends and family, was definitely there. Talked about their own experience. Look at the photo. Look at the slide now. Who are the people looking at? Who are the two people looking at? There you go. Ask students' opinion. If you look at the two people in the video, now at the end of the video, they're looking directly at you, at the audience, exactly. And they're asking a question of the audience. So the participants are talking to each other, but they're also talking to you as an audience. They keep looking back at the camera as if you are part of the conversation. They ask a question at the end that requires a response. And what they've done previously is talked about their experiences. So they've modeled the language that the students need to answer the question. Now, the question that then follows up is here. And it says, do you prefer to buy gifts or buy experiences for celebrations? So this question is personalized. It says, do you prefer to buy gifts or buy experiences for celebrations? So what would be the answer to that question? Do you prefer to buy gifts or buy experiences? The answer, to buy gifts, all right? So this is an example of a question that is a shallow question, but it's a good question. It gets people discussing what they've talked about in the video. But now we as teachers, we need to go deeper. So how could we go deeper? You talked earlier about asking questions. So what questions could you ask to go deeper with this? What follow-up questions would you ask? So give me an example of a good follow-up question. Good. Good. That's even more specific, isn't it? What was the last gift you gave for a friend? Yeah. Tell about one special gift you've had. When's the last time you bought a gift? What gift would you like to give to your mom? Lovely. Yeah. Okay. So now you're going deeper and you're personalizing the activity. So for example, I have questions such as, what was the last gift you bought? Who did you buy it for? What's your relationship with that person? Where did you buy it? Why did you choose that gift? How much did it cost? And then you can go back to, what was the last gift you received? Who gave it to you? Why did they give it to you? How did you feel when you received the gift? These are all simple questions that you can come up with that will really, really enhance the question that is being offered to you in the course book, and will help you go much deeper. Students will be more motivated because they're talking about themselves. We can also maybe look at some cultural things as well. So for example, in Thailand, we give money at weddings as a gift. And in the UK, we would provide a list of gifts we'd like people to choose and then buy for us. We can ask students, which would you prefer, money or gifts? And when using questioning, it's a good idea to have a process. So let me show a process of questioning that I would use in a classroom. So some practical steps. So have a look at this next slide. So with my practical steps for this questioning process, we have the question here: do you prefer to buy gifts or buy experiences for celebrations? So students would complete the initial task. All right, they do this task. Then you as a teacher will ask the students to give you more questions around the topic. You'll do a brainstorm. Now, to do this brainstorm, if you're teaching face-to-face, you can give out long strips of A3 paper, lots of markers, and get the students to work in a group and write the questions on a piece of paper, on strips of paper, and then they come up and they give you the strips of paper. You will stick the paper onto the board, all right? And you can put them on the board in any order. It doesn't need to be in any columns that you're going to see in a moment. Now, for the online classes, you can use a shared document, a Google Sheets or a Google Docs to complete this. Now, when you've collected the strips in, and you've stuck them on the board in any random order, you can point out or you can read the questions to the students. If the questions are perfect, if the grammar is perfect, you can put them under the column perfect. If the grammar is maybe there's some small errors, you can put them into could be better. Then students work together to correct the could be better questions. You keep these then on the board and you put students into different groups and they have a discussion. The way of doing this questioning is getting the language again from the students, eliciting this from the students. They're using their own language, so again, it's going to be more motivating. You also will come up with your own questions in case students don't think of questions that you think would be useful, so you can add to that. Hopefully your board is going to be full of questions. Students can then have a much richer conversation and discussion about the topic. With the errors as well, so there could be better column, you could again have students write these in the back of their books and create a bank of common errors that they make. This is a highly personalized way of personalizing grammar, which can be a challenge in some cases. To how do we personalize grammar? Well, we can keep a record of our common mistakes and use this before we do another speaking activity to remind ourselves, or when we're doing a writing activity, to check at the end of a writing activity when we're doing our draft, to go through and compare with the common mistakes that we normally make. Learner training is very important and also very personal. Lesson 1 is a skills-based lesson that builds students' vocabulary and grammar. So we have here a pre-reading activity, which is followed then in B by a more focused prediction activity. Individual, pair, partner, group work. Yeah, you can build up that. That's nice. So here, what I would do with this activity to personalize it, in activity B, it says, read the title and look at the pictures. What do you think you are going to read about? Check one of the ideas. So a story about someone's birthday. Now, I really like this. A story about someone's birthday. Now, this is a really, really important and easy way to start building our students' ability to give personal anecdotes. So with this, I would ask the students not only to predict, but also to tell me a story about someone's birthday from their own experience. So turn it into a kind of a little speaking activity. And this is great for building fluency. Having students tell you stories, tell you anecdotes, builds their fluency. And at this stage, I wouldn't correct anything. I just let them talk and let them get their ideas out and be confident in confident that they can actually give their opinions and ideas and tell stories. Students could also look online and find out what today's day of the year is. So we have a website called, there is a website called daysoftheyear.com. And I don't know if you know that today is Computer Security Day. So students could look at the day of the year that today is, and then discuss what they are going to do because of this day of the year. So every day of the year has some kind of celebration linked to it. And as I said, Computer Security Day today. We can then look at the actual reading comprehension or listening comprehension, depending on the receptive skill that you're practicing. What I'd like to do here to make it personal is get students to write their own questions, and then they can swap with their partner and answer each other's question. So rather than answering the questions in the book, which they can do quite easily, write your own questions really does personalize the listening or the reading, and then it gives the students a reason to read because they're answering each other's questions. Another really great tool is our triangle, square, circle technique. So after reading or listening to a text, students would draw a triangle, and at each point, they write down 3 things or 3 new things that they've learned during that reading or listening. Then they have a square, so they will draw a square, and next to the square, they can write down anything that they agree with, anything that squares with the way that they think. And then in the circle box, in the circle, they can write down anything that might be circling in their head or questions that they might have after the listening or the reading that they've done. So this is a neat technique that students can get used to, and it adds to the element of comprehension that they have in the book. Building students' vocabulary comes next. So after the reading, no, the vocabulary building might come before the input, might come after. Depends on the unit, depends on the topic. So here we have a vocabulary activity where they have the words in the text are bold and they have to match them to the definitions. Now, what you can do with this is you can get similar to the pronunciation activity that I mentioned earlier, is get students to connect with this by writing a paragraph. So here we can see an example of a paragraph that's been written that reflects the writer's own personal life, using the vocabulary that they have to use in the activity. So this highly personalizes the vocabulary. It should make it easier to understand because they're using it in their own context, and it should make it more memorable because, again, it's relevant to the interests and the writer has made it personal themselves. Also here, you might want to think back again to the unit opener of ranking the vocabulary, although this is a bit more of a challenge because these words are loosely connected in the topic that we're discussing, but they're not exactly a lexical set. So it could be a bit more of a challenge to rank these words. But whatever you do with the vocabulary, try to encourage students to engage with it and to make the vocabulary activity memorable. We also have the Make It Yours box here that you can see. And this is similar to the idea in the pre-reading task. And to make this even more personal, but to offer less choice, is to tell students to come up with the idea or the day of their birthday. And then they present that to the rest of the class. We then look at the grammar. So looking at grammar, activity A, activity B, and activity C are our grammar practice activities. And these are quite difficult to personalize as they deal directly with the mechanics of the language. We're looking to build students' patterns here, or ability to make and form patterns with the language and then use that effectively. And also, I'm going to just stop a moment here and say, you don't need to personalize every single activity in the book. This demo that I've given you today is hyper personalized. And in reality, I wouldn't go through the unit and personalize every single activity. But with anything, you can personalize. And these grammar activities can be personalized. And if we think about the error and accuracy that we're talking about earlier, so getting students to recognize areas that are challenging for them and getting them to write those down in the back of their book and building their skills to learn is another way of personalizing learning. So they can keep this collection of common errors, common difficulties, and use that as a way of personalizing. And then, as I said, every lesson ends with a speaking lesson. Now you'll see activity D is highly personalized already. Think about a celebration that you went to recently that had food and drinks. What did you have? Discuss and use quantifiers where necessary. So again, with this activity, with a speaking activity, a discussion, you might want to start asking more questions. So going back to our practical steps of asking questions and brainstorming, you would be then getting students to think about other questions. What was the celebration? Who did you go with? How many people were there? That kind of thing. What time of day was it? How did you get there? These kind of questions are going to help students to really develop their speaking skills and language skills. And then the last part is our speaking activity, our confident communicator. activity. And these are really, really already highly personalized. And really, there's not much adaptation you need to do with this kind of task. It's all kind of taken care. It's done for you. And the reason for this is, if you're going to do a speaking activity, it's very, very important that it's personalized and that an audience is selected. Otherwise, there's not much reason for you to do it. And you will see in these confident communicators that they're taken into account. So before we wrap up and recap on the benefits, just let me say there are opportunities everywhere to allow for personalization. And just because a question has the word you in it might not necessarily mean it is personalized. You need to look at the activities and think, how can I go deeper? So have this in the back of your head. How can I go deeper? How can I make this more relevant? How can I make this more interesting? How can I make it more motivating for my learners? Now, I'm going to show you a slide here with the benefits of personalization. And can you let me know in the chat box what you think, having listened to my presentation today, what are the benefits of personalization? And there are also two words of warning that I'm going to, or two things to consider when you're personalizing. What do you think might be some of the benefits? And we'll see if you've got the same ideas as me. So let me know in the chat box. Confidence to share about themselves. Yes, motivating. Motivating again, good. Unleashing their secrets. That's true. Yes, very much so. Creativity is increased. Yeah. Critical thinking. People like sharing. Yeah, they do, don't they? Sharing is caring. Exactly. Apply what they learned in real life. It's interesting. And people like to be listened to. Yes, they do. And that's a skill we need to teach. I would like to listen more to somebody if they were talking about themselves rather than some imaginary situation that I don't really care about and they don't care about. But if I can turn that into something that's important to them, I'm going to listen. I'm going to want to listen more as well. More active, more interesting. Yeah. Relevant and apparent. Yep. Reflecting real life experiences. Good, good, good. Yeah, with that warning, teachers need to set a specific time limit. That's true. And as I said, you don't need to personalize every single activity, but try to have some element of personalization in the lesson to keep students motivated. Different stories. Yeah, exactly. That's very true, isn't it? I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, but I like that. Different stories, Alsa. If you're asking students to talk about themselves rather than something hypothetical that is the same for everybody, then yes, you're going to have potentially, if you've got 20 students in the class saying the same 20 same things, if you're talking about yourselves, you have 20 different ideas. So yeah, and different stories. I really like that. That's nice. Warm classroom situations. Yes, I agree. And I think that's number 2 in my, or an idea of number 2 in mine. So let's have a quick look at my ideas and see if you agree with my ideas. So people like to talk about themselves. Yeah, so generally speaking, people do like to talk about themselves. And if they're speaking about their own experiences and their views, they're probably going to have more to say. The rapport. So this is something you said about a warm classroom situation. It builds rapport between students and students, and builds rapport between teacher and students by sharing information about each other and themselves. I should say, sharing information about themselves with each other creates a kind of bond where you've given something of yourself and then received something back. So you build a rapport. You're also agreeing. So you're also finding out what's really important to your students. So you're then able to tailor lessons to their interests. So more authentic use of new language. So when you use authentic language in a authentic language in a new way, or authentic new language, you have a more emotional bond with that language. This helps with memorization as well. And building fluency. So I mentioned before about telling stories and anecdotes about ourselves, giving our own personal experiences and our own views is an opportunity to build fluency. Now, again, mentioned insufficient time in class. As I said, you will need to follow your syllabus. And if you are teacher A who agrees that you don't have time, then look just to increase maybe the warmer of your session, and try and build some personalization into the warm-up or the final task that you do in the class. Try to get that to reflect on the students themselves rather than just doing the activities for the sake of it. And then we have the red areas, the words of warning. So sensitive topics, obviously students might not want to share some information about themselves, and you need to let students know that's fine. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. You might not want to pick up on topics such as health to have discussions, or finance, or this kind of thing. It might be sensitive to the students, and give them an option. They can opt out if they don't want to discuss. No problem at all. And also awareness of cultural differences. So sometimes some cultures don't like to show off, right? Showing off can be uncomfortable. So talking about yourself, talking about your achievements can sometimes be an uncomfortable thing to do. And I'll give you a little anecdote about that in Thailand, particularly with secondary students. I had a student who was a wonderful student, great speaker, really good at English, and I asked her to give an example in the classroom, and she said the example in a very strange way. Her pronunciation was very poor, and it wasn't what I expected to hear or that I've heard before. And I thought about it. I didn't think too much at the moment. I didn't question her as to why she was changing the way that she pronounced these words. But what I did at the end of the lesson, I tried to talk to her and say, why did you do that? Why did you not say what I asked you to say correctly? And she said, because she didn't want to show off and be the teacher's pet in the classroom. And I thought that's a really interesting point that, yeah, okay, some students are happy to show off and some aren't. So when you get to know your students, you'll become aware of this. Now, to find any additional resources, I've got a webinar here that we have on our Macmillan English website that's also about personalizing adult language learning. And we also have the article that I mentioned at the start that I took the quote from our One Stop English website as well. So you can add those to your repertoire. In fact, let me just quickly copy that into the chat box as well. And here is the article. Okay. So have a look at those. And then just to round off today's session, I'm going to do a reflection, a personalized reflection activity. So I'd like you to think of one of the benefits of personalization or something new that you've learned in today's session. And then tell me in the chat box, or tell everybody in the chat box, how you're going to apply this in your teaching, or who you're going to share it with in your teacher's room. Or you can think about a topic of international celebration. And after this COVID-19 is over and we can travel, which celebration would you most like to attend and in which country? So just let me know in the chat box. Okay, good. Thank you. Me too. I'd love to go to Switzerland and go skiing. Maybe do they have a fondue festival or something in Switzerland that we could attend? Some kind of a skiing celebration. Okay, I'd love to come to Mexico and join somebody's wedding in Mexico for sure. Thank you, Feng. Yeah, that is a very, very nice comment. It doesn't mean wasting time. Yes, exactly. Thank you for that comment. That's really nice. Lovely. Thank you very much. Great. Lovely job. And finally, I have the last slide to show you, which is our QR codes and links to the survey that we would like you to complete as well. And I've put a little link. If you click on the link at the top, it will take you to the survey. And thank you, Daisy, for putting it in the chat box as well. So if you follow the Facebook account in a... Okay, one moment. I'll come back to that, Amir. If you follow on the Facebook account, in a few days, hopefully, there will be a blog that I've written on personalization that you can access from the Facebook account. So please follow us on Facebook, and then you'll see that blog come up. The Teachers Club is a newsletter that gives you loads of information about what's going on, future webinars, and that kind of thing. And the survey we take very seriously, and we want to know more about you and the challenges that you have and the kind of training that you want in the future. So please complete the survey. So now I'll look at the questions. So Amir, let me go back to your question. Okay, to me, I don't think they're that different. I think, for example, if we go back to the Thai learners and the pronunciation task. So if I am teaching my Thai learners pronunciation, and it's an area that they don't have a problem with, then I might not want to teach them that area of pronunciation. And what I might do then is change it so that so I might customize it in your the way that you've put it, and change it to something that they have problems with. And then I would personalize it by asking them to give me the language, to give me the words that they want in order to do the activity. That's the way that I would go about doing it in terms of looking at the differences between customizing the activity so it fits their personal needs, and then personalizing by getting them to come up with some of the content. I hope that answers your question. Very good question, Alison. Which one is more important, to personalize or to differentiate? Well, I don't think we can compare the two in such a way that what's more important. I don't think there's sort of a competition. You can personalize and differentiate similar at the same time, as we looked at in the Find Someone Who activity. I think they're both super important. I think when I'm thinking about personalization, I'm thinking about making materials relevant to the learners. Then differentiating within that is also, it's going to make it easier for students because the topic, the language, the task is about themselves. So hopefully that actually it will help with differentiation, but I don't think we can compare them. I think it's kind of apples and oranges. Okay, well, I'm going to hang around for a few more minutes. So if you've got any questions, do let me know. And you can also use the email address as well if you're interested in the session today and the products, the Speak Your Mind material. Get in touch. Thank you for all your kind words. Oh yeah, it's Monday morning, isn't it? Everything kind of melts into one. So yeah, thank you for attending on this Monday morning or Monday evening for some of you, and have a great week. I hope you've enjoyed the 4 webinars that we've provided you. Take care and look after yourself, and hope to see you again in the future. All the best.